Hello, everybody, and welcome into the latest edition of the OKPreps Kickoff Show. I'm your host, Michael Knight, the director of OKPreps.com, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but it is week 5. We're about to kick off things for week number 5. We're officially, once games end on Friday night, we will have officially reached the halfway point of the 2019 regular season. It seems like just yesterday, look, it's all cliche. It seems like just yesterday we were previewing all of the classes, picking state championships, predicting what would happen. All of those predictions, most of those predictions weren't accurate, but we are now at the halfway point of the 2019 season, and it feels like we're just now learning a lot of things about a lot of different top teams in Oklahoma as district play just opened up last week. It continues this week with some great matchups. And if you're just now joining us, this is your first time to the OKPreps Kickoff Show, let's fill you in on what to expect from this program. We lead things off each and every single week with the OKPreps 10. What that is our OKPreps top 10 games of the week. We start with our game of the week, our top matchup every single week. This week it features Heritage Hall and John Marshall, but we'll get to more on that in a little bit. If you haven't done so already, you can go to OKPreps.com and check out the top 10 games. We release them every single Monday to check out each week's new top 10 games, and then we kick off the kickoff show with the OKPreps 10. We also hear from some of the coaches in those matchups. You'll hear from various coaches in those matchups from different schools later on in the program. I'll also give you 5 players to watch, whether they're already stars or they're stars in the making. We'll break down some of their play so far this season, and then we'll answer your questions. We'll also take questions. We take questions over social media throughout the week, so you can send us your questions at any time. Not only will we answer them on the kickoff show, but we'll also answer them on the OKPreps Roundup, which is our recap show, podcast only. We don't do video for that one. It's only on podcast, and you can check that out every Sunday. We release the OKPreps Roundup, and we answer your questions then as well. And then it wouldn't be a preview show if we didn't make some picks, right? So we go back to the top 10 games of the week, and we pick who we think will be the winner on Friday night, or in some cases Thursday night as well. And then we promote some of the content that you can expect not only on OKPreps.com, but on our YouTube channel. If you're watching us right now, go ahead and hit subscribe to the OKPreps YouTube channel. Not only will you get every kickoff show, but you'll also get our highlights throughout the week. We'll be at several different games this week, so you'll want to check out the highlights of those top matchups on Thursday and Friday night. And if you're listening to us, we appreciate you as well. You can listen and not just watch the kickoff show. Search OKPreps on Apple Podcasts, and you can subscribe to the OKPreps Podcast Network. You'll get every single kickoff show as well as our OKPreps Roundup recap show that we release every weekend. But it's that time of the week, time to break down the top 10 games of week number 5. And let's throw up the top graphic to show you a complete list of this week's top matchups. We got ranked teams, we got undefeated teams, we got some of the best teams in the state of Oklahoma, and they're about to square off on Thursday or Friday night. And let's start with that number 1 matchup, the game of the week. It takes place in Class 3A as number 1 Heritage Hall will take on number 4 John Marshall in a battle between two of the last 3A state champions, Heritage Hall winning the 3A title a year ago, John Marshall winning the 3A championship 2 seasons ago. They met last year in district play after being non-district opponents the previous 2 seasons. Heritage Hall won last year 27-20, as that was one of the closest games that Heritage Hall had in 2018 on their way to a state championship. This is a game that I've had circled on the calendar all year long. I love the way John Marshall has started the season, but I think that they would say the exact same thing. They haven't played anybody of the caliber of Heritage Hall yet. When it comes to the 2 teams coming into Friday's matchup, Heritage Hall certainly has played a much more difficult schedule when you take a look at some of the teams that they've had to play. They had to play Millwood in the season opener. They had to play Clinton as well, a top 10 team in Class 4A. So Heritage Hall has been tested. They've been in some battles already so far against some pretty good teams. But I would make the argument that John Marshall is going to be the toughest team that Heritage Hall plays during the regular season. And so John Marshall, yeah, they're about to get their toughest test, but I would make the same argument for Heritage Hall. That's why it is our game of the week. I think that the district champion will come out of this matchup, either Heritage Hall or John Marshall. Whichever team ends up on the winning side on Friday night, I believe, will end up as your district champion in a district in Class 3A that is absolutely loaded with some really good football teams. But I think that Heritage Hall and John Marshall are the cream of the crop when it comes to those two ball clubs and when it comes to that district in Class 3A. And when it comes down to this matchup, I really want to see how the Heritage Hall defense tries to slow down John Marshall's offense. They have weapons everywhere. And like I said, I think that Heritage Hall, they're going to get their toughest test from John Marshall, specifically this John Marshall offense. We may be in for a shootout. And one thing is for sure, if one of these teams is able to slow the other down and shut down the other's offense, that'll be a complete surprise because both teams can light up a scoreboard. Both teams have no problem scoring the football. And if one team dominates the other, that will definitely be a surprise. And I can't wait for this potential shootout on Friday night. That is why it's our OKPreps game of the week. Our next matchup, it's our number 2 matchup. It comes to us on Thursday night. It's a 5A top 5 battle as number 4 Edison will host number 3 Bishop Kelly. Kelly coming in 2-2 on the season. Edison coming in 3-1. Bishop Kelly beat Edison 31-20. In their meeting back in 2018. And some might be wondering, and some have asked the question, Bishop Kelly, why are they ranked number 3? They're 2-2. They've lost to Bishop McGuinness. They got blown out by McGuinness. They got handled by Booker T. Washington. Why are the Comets ranked the number 3 team in 5A? And I believe that it's going to work itself out. They're either going to win on Thursday night against Edison or they're going to lose. If they lose, they'll drop in the rankings. If they win, they're going to stay right there, and they're going to prove why they're the number 3 team in Class 5A. Full disclosure, I think, and we'll get more into the reasons why when we do the picks, I think Edison might end up being the better team, but that is because of one reason and one reason only. Bishop Kelly, week in and week out, has lost significant players. And when I'm talking about players, I'm talking about stars. Corey Lewis got hurt in the Booker T. Washington game. Montreal Kozar got hurt last week, I believe, or the week before. They started the season without arguably their best player in Zach Middleton, who's still nursing an injury and waiting to get back onto the field and get back to 100%. Bishop Kelly, when at full strength, is one of the best teams in 5A. The problem is they're not at full strength, and that could open the door for Edison to get a big-time win on Thursday night. Our number 3 game, we go down to Class A. This matchup lost a little bit of luster, but it's still going to be a great one. That's why we have it at number 3. Number 10, Tonkawa, will host number 5, PAWHUSKA. PAWHUSKA coming in at 5-0. Tonkawa, the defending Class A champs, coming in at 4-1. They beat PAWHUSKA 13-12 in their meeting in 2018. Tonkawa, though, coming off of a loss to Pawnee last week that dropped them in the rankings all the way down to number 10 as Pawnee was able to pull off the upset. And yeah, so coming into this matchup, we had it circled on our calendar as one to watch, even back before the season started. When it comes to Class A games to watch and games to circle on your calendar, we had this one circled for a reason because we think that PAWHUSKA has the chance to be that special team in Class A, and they've given us no reason to think otherwise so far. When you see the kind of numbers that their quarterback Bryce Drummond has put up, he was a candidate for Player of the Week back in Week 4. This last week, after his performance against, I believe they played Barnsdall, and they won handily, and he had a great game in the win there. And when you look at the numbers that he's put up so far this year, he already has double-digit passing touchdowns and double-digit rushing touchdowns leading this PAWHUSKA offense. And I made the joke on OKPreps.com, if you haven't already read it. Stop me if you've heard this before. Matt Hennessy has another big-time quarterback putting up huge numbers. Of course, was the head coach at Locust Grove when Mason Fine was rewriting the record book for passing yards, passing touchdowns in Oklahoma. Now he's a star at North Texas. And Coach Hennessy has tried to revitalize this PAWHUSKA program, and I think he's in the middle of doing it. And that's why I'm so interested in this matchup. We're going to find out how serious this PAWHUSKA team is, because not only are they going on the road to face the defending champs, they're going on the road to face the defending champs who are coming off of a loss. So this is going to be a huge measuring stick game. And plus for Tonkawa, you can't afford to lose another district game. You want to control things in the district, and after losing to Pawnee last week, Tonkawa not only is going to be upset, they're going to be hungry, they're going to be angry, and it's going to make for a great football game. I'm looking forward to seeing what ends up happening up in Tonkawa as PAWHUSKA looks to dethrone the defending state champions. Our next game, we go back up into 6A1 as number 2 Broken Arrow will host number 5 Norman. Battle of the Tigers coming to you in BA as Broken Arrow's 3-1. Norman a perfect 4-0. Broken Arrow absolutely throttled Norman last year, 63-7. Norman fans would tell you that this isn't 2018. It's not even 2017 or 16. It's 2019, and they believe that they have one of their best teams in recent memory. And having been on the sideline for one of their games, I tend to agree. I think that, especially offensively, this Norman team is dangerous. They have some weapons, and it all starts at the quarterback position with Cade Horton, their QB, a fantastic quarterback who, I made the joke on the OKPreps Roundup podcast over the weekend how it feels like he's been there for about 6 or 7 years. He has experience, he has intelligence, and he has weapons around him, and that's a scary combination. Whether it's Andrew Young or I believe Jaden Bray is the basketball star who now is becoming a football star at wide receiver. Cade Horton has weapons to distribute the ball to, but they haven't played Broken Arrow yet. They've beaten some good teams. They haven't played a great team yet. Broken Arrow is a great football team. It's a reason why they're the defending state champions, and there's a reason why they beat Norman head-to-head 63-7. I do think, I can guarantee you one thing, it's going to be closer. It's going to be closer. They're not going to win by 50+, but at the same time, I do believe that Broken Arrow is the better football team. And if Norman, if this is really the year, this is the game. This is the opportunity that you've been waiting for to prove to the state of Oklahoma that the Norman Tigers are for real in 2019. And the one way you do that is you go on the road to a program like Broken Arrow that's coming off a state championship. You go into Memorial Stadium and you kick the team's butt, and you walk out with a W. That's how you get the state's attention. Broken Arrow is certainly going to have something to say about that, though, as it's a battle of the Tigers. Can't wait to see what happens there in a battle not only of the Tigers, but 2 top 5 teams in 6A1. Our number 5 game, we go to Class 5A, as number 6 El Reno will host number 10 Noble. Noble coming in at 3-1, El Reno coming in at 4-0. El Reno beat Noble last year 33-26, or excuse me, 33-25. They beat Noble last season. El Reno has been great this season. Noble has been a nice surprise team in 5A. They picked up some really quality wins so early on, but this is a big test for them as far as how serious they are. And this district is brutal when you consider there's only going to be 4 playoff spots available. And you look at some of the teams in that district, including Noble and El Reno. It's also the same district that features Ardmore, that features Lawton MacArthur, that features Altus. That's 5 teams right there. There's only 4 playoff spots, so one of these teams is going to be left out. Ardmore and Lawton Mac played last week head-to-head. Now you have Noble and El Reno playing head-to-head. A lot of these games are going to turn into elimination games, and I love what I've seen from El Reno here early on. Noble, definitely a breakout season for them, but going on the road to take on El Reno, their quarterback Dorian Plumley, who just continues to build his legend as one of the better quarterbacks to come through El Reno in quite some time. When you look at some of the numbers that he puts up, and sometimes it's Dorian Plumley time, and he has to put the team on the back, put them on his shoulders, and carry him to victories. And he's been able to do that so far. Maybe he's able to add another one on Friday night as Noble comes to town. Our number 6 game, you have a big matchup in 6A2 as number 3 Booker T. Washington will host number 1 Bixby. Booker T. coming in at 2-2. Bixby coming in an undefeated 4-0, and they have a lot of people asking the question if the Spartans are not only the best team in 6A2, but are they the best team in Oklahoma overall? A lot of people are asking those questions considering what Bixby has been able to do over the first month. They're 4-0. They have yet to score less than 50 points in any of their 4 wins, and those 4 wins are pretty impressive when you consider some of the teams, some of the athletes that they've beaten on their way to this 4-0 start. Bixby did beat Booker T last year 21-7. And since the split in 6A2, these are the 2 programs that have dominated 6A2. Bixby winning 4 state championships, Booker T winning the other one. Since the split, these 2 have been dead even, 3-3 head-to-head record since the split back in 2014. Head-to-head, these 2 teams are dead even, 3-3. Something's going to give, though, as Bixby looks to be arguably, like people have asked the question, arguably the best team in the state of Oklahoma right now. Booker T. Washington certainly going to have a lot to say about that. Talent-wise, they have the athletes to match up with the Bixby Spartans. This has always been a can't-miss game on the schedule since that split in 6A, and I'm looking forward to being on the sidelines there at S.E. Williams Stadium for a big-time matchup between the number 3 Hornets and the number 1 Spartans. Our number 7 game, we go to Class 4A, is number 10, Clinton will host number 6, Weatherford. Weatherford coming in at 3-1, Clinton coming in at 2-2. Clinton drubbed Weatherford last year 35-13, but this season, Clinton now coming into this matchup with the Eagles off of a loss last week to Newcastle. So what will Clinton bring to the table as they look to bounce back? Similar to some of the other districts in Class 5A, we mentioned El Reno and Noble, how there's so many good teams in that district, and there's not going to be enough playoff spots down the stretch in November. The same can be said for this district in Class 4A, and if you're Clinton, you cannot afford to lose the 2nd straight district game, so they're going to come out with their hair on fire, and that could be the worst case scenario for Weatherford as they try to solidify themselves as maybe the favorite in that district. Clinton will certainly have something to say about that as they come in as our number 7 game in the OKPreps 10. Our number 8 game, we go to Class 3A as my voice is starting to fail me. Number 2, Lincoln Christian coming in undefeated 4-0. They'll welcome unranked Seminole. Seminole only unranked because they have a blemish on the schedule. 1 loss on the season so far. Otherwise, they would be right there with some of the top teams in Class 3A. Seminole beat Lincoln Christian 50-31 in their matchup last year. And Seminole head coach Mike Snyder, he's going for the state's all-time wins record. And with another victory, he will break the tie with longtime Sealing head coach Bruce Hendrickson. With the victory, Coach Snyder, longtime Hall of Fame head coach of Seminole, will become the state's all-time leading wins or all-time winningest head coach. I think he might be waiting another week, but the one thing is for sure, he's going to be setting that record this season, and we can't wait to congratulate Coach Snyder on a well-deserved accomplishment. I know how much he means to that community in Seminole, how many great players have gone through Seminole and who have played for Coach Snyder, and looking forward to recognizing him for that accomplishment. But it might not be coming this week, as that's a tough Lincoln Christian team. They're definitely going to have a little revenge on their mind after losing to Seminole last year, especially the way they did as Cameron Gunville, Seminole's running back, ran up and down the field over Lincoln Christian. He had a big game in the victory over the Bulldogs. And so step number 1 for Lincoln this year is slow down Cameron Gunville and play spoiler for Coach Snyder going after the all-time wins record. Our number 9 game features number 1 Carl Albert in Class 5A. They go on the road to take on number 9 Piedmont. Piedmont, kind of similar situation to Noble. In fact, Piedmont beat Noble earlier this year as a team that was certainly on the outside looking in on the top 10 back before the season started, but they put together a couple of solid wins, and now they find themselves in the OKPreps 10. But the problem is they're hosting the defending champions in Class 5A. Carl Albert beat Piedmont 34-7 in their meeting in 2018, and the Titans look just as dominant as ever last week in their victory. They became, I believe, the fourth or the fifth program in state history to win at least 40 consecutive games, as they've now won 40 in a row dating back to the 2016 season, as the Titans look to remain undefeated not only this year, but go ahead and notch 41 consecutive victories. They go on the road to take on a Piedmont team that may end up being a playoff team, especially when you look at that district. Bishop McGuinness is going to be right there with Carl Albert, but then you have other teams like Guthrie, who seems to be taking a step back this year. That's going to open the door for a team like Piedmont to make it into the playoffs for the first time in a while. Our final game, the number 10 game, go back up to 6A1 as number 3 Union will host number 10 Mustang. Mustang coming off of a surprising loss to Norman North. Norman North was over going into the game with Mustang. They walked out with a 23-20 victory. Union coming into this matchup at 1-3. The Redskins beat Mustang handily 44-3 in their matchup a year ago. And kind of similar to the questions that we've gotten from Bishop Kelly fans, why is Bishop Kelly ranked as high as they are? We've gotten the same question about Union, about Jinx. Why is Union ranked as high as they are at number 3 in 6A1, considering they are 1-3? The easy answer to that is we're about to find out. These games are going to play themselves out. These teams that are ranked below Union and Jinx and some of the other teams in 6A1 that don't have as good of records as some of the West Side teams that are ranked below them, they're going to start playing head-to-head, and we're going to figure this thing out pretty quickly. And I think that it's going to work itself out. I think that Union's the third best team in 6A1 right now. I think that they're knocking on the door to possibly be the number 2 team in 6A1. I'd love to see that Union BA matchup again. But before we get to that, there's plenty of West Side teams that are looking to knock the door in on 6A1 and stop this power that BA, Owasso, Union, Jinx have on 6A1. They're trying to kind of balance the power out to the West Side. And Mustang definitely in a must-win situation after losing to Norman North a week ago. Enough breakdowns from me as we do each and every single week. Let's hear from some of the coaches in these matchups as we do each and every single week. And I'm looking forward to it being joined by coaches from all over the state. And we start in our top matchup, our game of the week, Heritage Hall taking on John Marshall, 1 versus 4 in Class 3A, potential district championship on the line. And we caught up with Heritage Hall head coach Brett Bogert before the game.
Yeah, there's no doubt. It's going to be 2 explosive offenses. Also, it's something's got to give. I think they've given up 7 points all year, and I think we've given up 14. I think our varsity's given up 7 as well. So, yeah, there's going to be 2 explosive offenses, but 2 also very talented and gifted defenses. So something's going to have to give for sure tomorrow night. But, yeah, they're talented all over the field. They got 2 running backs that would play, I think, anywhere in the state, and 2 receivers that can absolutely go. Obviously, they're getting a lot of attention, and I expect them to be all of them to be playing on Saturdays. So, yeah, I think it has the potential to be a shootout, but I'd prefer it not to be, obviously. But yeah, there's talent all over the field, and it's going to be fun for sure. It always seems in this district to go through us, Joe Marshall, Kingfisher. Obviously, Perkins is having a great year so far, but really, yeah, we just try to focus on Joe Marshall. It's it's easy not to look ahead when you're playing a team this good. They get your attention immediately when you turn on the tape. There's no doubt about that. But we do. We don't mince words either. We know that this has district title implications, and we let the kids know because we feel like they really thrive in situations like that. That's why we try to play teams early on so we get ready for games like this. We feel like Clinton and Millwood were obviously good tests. Unfortunately, didn't get to play Davis, but it's been huge helping us, and we're ready for this one. We know there's district title implications. We're not gonna lie about it or anything like that. So. Our kids are fired up. Coaching staff's fired up. No disrespect to anybody in the future, but we know how big this game is.
Up next, we have a big matchup on Thursday night as Bishop Kelly will travel to face off Edison in a top 5 battle in Class 5A. People asking questions about Bishop Kelly. Are they really a top 5 team? They're having to battle the injury bug here early on, and we caught up with their head coach, JJ Tapana, and how the Comets will look to overcome these injuries in a big matchup against the Eagles.
Oh, first of all, you don't feel sorry for yourself. I mean, I think every time I turn around, I hear about another awesome player in the state going down with some sort of injury. It's been a really strange year, at least in my class, in Class 5A, and around this area. I've heard of so many injuries of key players for teams, so more so than I've heard in a long time. But you just don't feel sorry for yourself. Everybody has to deal with it. I mean, it's the way it is. You have to, refocus yourself a little bit and realign what you're doing offensively and defensively. And I mean, that's what's there. That's what coaches are there for. I mean, I don't know. I guess people say, well, would it be fun if it was easy? I think it probably wouldn't be, but just got to keep going, man. I mean, that's all you got to do. We talk to our kids about, football being a microcosm of life, and, bad things happen to good people, and life's not fair. And, when you get knocked down, you just got to get up and keep going, and that's what you do. So we're fine with where we're at. I mean, yeah, we've been hit pretty hard, but probably no more than some other teams, college, NFL, everybody kind of loses those guys. But, I remind my kids, the people who don't get hurt are the ones that are in the stands watching the game. If you want to get out there and be in the mix of it, you're probably going to get injured at some point. So just is what it is.
Let's go down to Class A as PAWHUSKA looks to dethrone defending state champion Tonkawa on the road, as PAWHUSKA looks to become one of the elite teams in Class A. They have a quarterback to do it in Bryce Drummond. They have a coach who is certainly experienced in big games, and we caught up with that coach, Matt Hennessy of PAWHUSKA, to talk about this matchup with the defending champion Tonkawa Bucks.
Well, I mean, our offense is rolling. We've scored 60 in about every game except that one. And, and it starts with Bryce. Bryce is doing a great job. Bryce had a great offseason. He's worked his tail off. But he's learning how to play quarterback, too. Now he's not just a 6'4", 220-pound kid running around that can sling it a mile. He's going through his reads. He's going through his progressions. And he's surrounded by athletes. That's what he's learning, too, that he doesn't have to do everything. And I think the thing that gets left unsaid about our offense right now is our offensive line, because, we hired Duke Atterbury back. We got, he's a legend in Oklahoma, and he's from PAWHUSKA. I did my student teaching for him here 100 years ago. So, I mean, getting that tough attitude back and what he's done with our offensive line is amazing. So, it starts up there, and then our athletes are doing what they need to do. And then hired Bill Williams. Had two big hires on our coaching staff. Hired Bill Williams, who, is a well-known coach in the state. Probably always joke with him, he was the second best defensive coach in the state, but since I moved over to offense, somebody had to step up. But he came in as running our defense, and defense is flying around the football, shutting them out. It's just we're having so much fun. We have such good kids. I talked to Brent Martin. They got a great team over at Rejoice also, and he and I both are in kind of the same situation as far as we've got good players, but more than that, we got a bunch of kids that just they work their tails off. They love each other. They like being around each other. We don't have issues every day. We've got communities that are just over the top supporting us. Our administration's all behind us. Just got all the right things mixed together, and learning how to win last year, which was big last year, just making the playoffs and learning how to win after they'd gone and won 10 for a couple of years. Was big, and we only had one senior last year, and he was really more of just a leader. He wasn't a great football player, he's a great wrestler. But so having everybody back, and now they get it. So practice is completely different. Games are different. Game preparation, getting on and off the bus is different. It's just everything this year is more refined, more well tuned, and everybody's pretty focused on what the task is, which is try to go 1-0 every week and win week 15.
The Norman Tigers are looking to do something that not many West Side teams have been able to do. Go on the road to the Tulsa area and beat one of the Big Four in 6A1. Norman believes that they have the team to do it going into their matchup with Broken Arrow. Head coach Rocky Martin talks about this year's team and the opportunity ahead of them to try to knock off the defending champs.
Obviously, first and foremost, they're a solid football team. And our guys are playing really well. they're big up front, both sides of the ball, offensive line and defensive line. They're a very physical group across the board, and that's offense, defense, and special teams. And then they're a very disciplined team as well. They're well coached, and then and what they did last year is really impressive. And so it's a big time challenge for us, and it should be a great football game. The big thing is we try to treat it just like any other week. Even though it is against Broken Arrow, the defending state champ, we still approach practice the exact same. We didn't change anything on our practice scripts. We didn't change anything as far as how we practice or how we watch film. We're treating it the same. But like you said, it is against a different opponent who's really good, and we've got to focus on what we do. And so that's been our approach all week.
It's become a game that gets circled on the calendar year in and year out in 6A2. Bixby going on the road to take on Booker T. Washington and a battle between two of the best teams in 6A2. But for Booker T, they come in as the underdog when you look at what Bixby has been able to do so far in the first month of the season. Head coach Brad Caleb talks about what his team is up against going up against the Spartans.
I don't think it's the most talented team that I have seen in the past. I just think they're so well coached that they don't make many mistakes. I mean, the team that we have on film on them, their opponent just give up a lot. They just make a lot of mistakes, and they capitalize on that. And so they just make them more efficient in the offense and defense, and they take advantage of it very well. And like I said, they don't make very many mistakes. So that in itself, right there, is how they win the games, a lot of the games.
And finally, Lincoln Christian will try to be a spoiler on Friday night as Seminole tries to win their game for their head coach, Mike Snyder, to become the state's all-time winningest head coach. Lincoln Christian head coach Jerry Rickey talks about not only playing spoiler, but getting a little revenge as well after last year's loss to the Chieftains.
Yeah, I think, the most important thing for us is, like you said earlier, just to get 2-0 in the district would be huge for us. We know kind of Seminoles, one of the big tests that we're going to have in our district. They've always been that way. Obviously, Coach Snyder's won a ton of games. We're really looking forward to the night. Our defense, I wouldn't say there's revenge on their mind. They just want to do a good job. We know to help us have the best shot of winning the game, we've got to slow their running back Gunville down. He's a great player. He's a good player. He runs well. He finishes runs. They have a good offensive line, and you can tell they lean on him a lot. So, to answer your question, basically we need to do the things that we're going to do to be successful. We need to slow down their run game and, make them keep snapping the ball. He has a lot of long runs, and we need to, he's going to get you. He's too good of a running back to not hit some runs. We just need to make him snap it again on that drive and make him finish drives. And so it's going to be a good challenge. Coach Snyder, we have the most respect for him. He's a great man. He's done it for the kids. He's won a lot of football games, but I know him. He's done it for the kids, and we're glad that they're coming to town. But we don't want to be the team that he sets a record on.
My thanks goes out to all of the coaches who joined us here on the OKPreps Kickoff Show. Be sure to stay tuned to the Kickoff Show every week, as we'll have more coaches join us in those top 10 matchups. Who needs thoughts from me when you can hear it from the coaches in the games themselves? I love bringing that feature to you each and every single week. Also, stay tuned to this weekend to the OKPreps Roundup. We'll have plenty of coaches join us for extended conversations about the games that take place on Friday night. But as we do at this part of the Kickoff Show each and every single week, we give you 5 players to watch. And not all 5 are in these top 10 matchups, but this week it just worked out that way. And we start alphabetically as we do each and every single week, and we go to the number 9 game as Carl Albert is taking on Piedmont, and their quarterback, Ben Harris, is looking to win his 33rd consecutive game as the starting quarterback of the Carl Albert Titans. He's a player to watch for sure week in and week out. Since bursting onto the scene as a freshman for the Titans, Harris has not made any mistakes, and that's a big reason why Carl Albert is at the point that they're at with 40 consecutive wins. He's a perfect 32-0 as the starting QB for the Titans, and he's put up some big-time numbers. He's also had plenty of weapons around him, and he'd be the first to tell you that he's definitely been blessed with some great size, some great talent, some great speed. At the running back position, at the wide receiver position, he has plenty of weapons to distribute the ball to, and he looks to continue his perfect record as the starting quarterback. Carl Albert looking to continue their winning streak, and they're taking it one game at a time. That one game at a time approach, definitely something that you hear from when it comes to those big-time programs on these lengthy winning streaks. They're not talking about records. They're not talking about championships because it's only early October, and you can't win a championship until early December. And the Titans looking to win their 41st consecutive game against Piedmont. And Ben Harris, definitely a player to watch on this Titan football team as a ball distributor. And he's a low-key athlete. I mean, this kid, he's got some moves. He definitely can make an impact. He's not just a game manager. He's not just a ball distributor. He has plenty of weapons around him, but at the same time, he knows how to make plays with his arm, with his legs, and he's a big reason why, like I mentioned, Carl Albert is where they're at. Our next player to watch, you go to the Booker T. Bixby matchup. Booker T. Washington linebacker Krishan Brown, the Kansas commit, one of the best linebackers in the state of Oklahoma, and Booker T. Washington is going to need Brown on Friday night. We talked about this Bixby offense and what they've been able to do so far this season, as Bixby has yet to score less than 50 points. They've scored at least 70 on 2 occasions. They went on the road and beat Jinx 57-7. Last week they beat Sapulpa 54-10. And when you looked at the box score, Bixby had a lot of turnovers there. They played somewhat sloppy, and yet they still put up 54 points. They still walked away with a 44-point victory. Krishan Brown and this Booker T defense has got to contain the Bixby offense. They can't give up the big plays that some of the other teams have been able, or that some of the other teams have given up so far this season. If they can force some 3-and-outs, if they can get some turnovers and take advantage of those turnovers, then they'll be able to be in a position to pull off the upset. And yes, at this point, when you look at what Bixby's been able to do, if the Hornets win on Friday night, you got to consider it an upset. Although these two teams are so evenly matched year in and year out, it looks like Bixby right now is on a different level. Krishan Brown and the Hornets looking to bring them back down to earth. Our next player to watch, we stay with another Kansas commit, coincidentally, Union wide receiver Kyler Pearson. The next player to watch this week in Week 5 is Union will host Mustang on homecoming. And when you think about the Pearson name, in this decade, there's been so many Pearsons that have made big plays for Union. And on homecoming night, as you take a look back at some of the best teams in Union history, especially the last decade, there have been so many Pearsons that have been playmakers for the Redskins. And Kyler, the latest playmaker for Union. And if he has a big night, and he very well could, because I love this passing attack from the Redskins, and they're just waiting. They're just biding their time to open up some things after a month that featured a brutal schedule, which is why they're 1-3. When you consider those 3 losses, a last-second field goal to a team out of Texas, a 14-point loss to Broken Arrow, losing last week to the top-ranked Owasso Rams on the road. Union is itching to get out of the gates in a hurry, especially offensively. They have the weapons to do it, and I think Pearson and this Union offense is in for a big night on Friday, homecoming against Mustang. Our next player to watch, we mentioned Lincoln Christian and Seminole, and we go to that matchup with Lincoln wide receiver Sam Brueggemann, as he's one of the top wide receivers statistically in the state. You take a look at last year's numbers and early on this year, what he's been able to do, catching the ball, receptions, receiving yards, receiving touchdowns. He's always near the top or at the top of those lists the last 2 seasons for Lincoln Christian. But when you go back to last year, that loss to Seminole, Brueggemann didn't play in the game, or at least from what we could tell looking at the stats, he didn't register a single catch. So either he didn't play, or it was a rare deal where he didn't make a single catch in the game against Seminole. He's healthy. He's looking to make an impact. And if he is able to get loose, he's the deep threat week in and week out. Chase Rickey, their quarterback, has put up monster numbers every single week, and Brueggemann has been his go-to wide receiver. Lincoln Christian, I mentioned, trying to get a little revenge after losing the way they did to Seminole a year ago. Rickey and Brueggemann looking to put up big numbers on Friday night against the visiting Chieftains. And then finally, our final player to watch, we go to that Edison-Bishop Kelly matchup with Edison senior Thomas Ivy, whether he's at wide receiver or at defensive back. This kid is just simply electric, an absolute playmaker. He's a potential shutdown corner. He also has the ability to break the game open offensively, and he also makes an impact on special teams as well. And so when you think about Edison, of course, most people, they go immediately to Savion Morrison and the impact that he has on this Edison offense. But at the same time, he wouldn't have these type of numbers if Edison wasn't able to have some kind of balance offensively. You can't just run Savion every single play. That's not going to get you anywhere. Edison can throw the ball. Edison can do other things offensively besides just hand it off to number 28. And one of those things is utilize Thomas Ivy. Ivy, a fantastic athlete, a game changer offensively and defensively. The one Edison game that we've been to so far against Claremore, Ivy had a huge performance. He caught a touchdown. He came up with an interception on defense. He had an impact in all three phases of the game. And that's the reason why he's our final player to watch here heading into week 5, because he can have such an impact in a variety of ways for his football team on a Thursday. In this week, in the case of this week, a Thursday night as opposed to a Friday night. Now it's the time in the kickoff show where we answer your questions. You can send us your questions on social media throughout the week, Facebook, Twitter, wherever you follow us, like us, communicate with us. You can send us your questions. Not only will we answer them right here on the OKPreps Kickoff Show, but we'll also answer them over the weekend in our podcast, the OKPreps Roundup Podcast. We'll answer your questions there as well. So send us your questions. We'll answer them either on the Kickoff Show or on the OKPreps Roundup. And we start this week's questions with this one, a little upset watch question. Which ranked team should be on upset watch heading into week 5? And I'm going to break this down very simply. I'm not going to pick a team that's ranked that's playing another ranked opponent, because even though you do have some matchups, Carl Albert facing Piedmont, that would be an upset. But I'm not going to do a ranked versus ranked. I'm going to look at the unranked teams playing some ranked teams. I'm going to give you one that is definitely has me looking at it a little closely. Broken Bow taking on Hilldale. Hilldale coming off of a stunning loss to Central last week, where Central beat them like a drum. Hilldale definitely going to be upset going into this week. Broken Bow definitely has bounced back from that early season loss to Metro Christian, but this is a huge district matchup. Hilldale definitely, we mentioned these teams can't afford to lose another district game. Hilldale can't afford to lose another district game. Otherwise, they're looking at more than likely for sure being out on the outside looking in on being a home playoff team. And if they lose much more, they're going to be on the outside looking in on the playoffs altogether. So Hilldale definitely going to have some fight in them this week. That's a matchup to watch. If you're Broken Bow, look, I'm not saying they're going to lose. I'm just saying I'm going to put you on upset watch. Watch out for Hilldale. That's going to be a big game for Hilldale, looking to bounce back. They're going to want to prove that they're still one of the best in Class 4A, and what better way to do that than going on the road and beating one of the 4A's best in Broken Bow. Our next question, kind of similar to the one that we've had in the past, as far as who's been the best player this year, who's had the biggest breakout season. And there's a couple candidates for this. There's a couple guys that come to mind. I'm going to go to the west side to Westmore quarterback Dayton Wolf. He had a really good season last year as a sophomore, but this year, this kid has become one of the state's best at the quarterback position. He might end up being one of the state's best at that position by the end of this season, and he's just a junior, so there's so much more room for him to grow as a quarterback and as a player, as a teammate, and all of that. What he's been able to do from the sophomore year where he was here, and that's really good. Being right here as a sophomore, really good. What he's done between sophomore year and where he's at right now as a junior has been so impressive, and you can't help but look ahead to what he might be as a senior if he continues this growth, if he continues to progress as a player, both running the ball and throwing the ball. This Westmore team is going to end up being pretty dangerous, and a big reason is because of their quarterback, Dayton Wolf. And our final question, we kind of made hints about this early on. Are the Bixby, and a lot of people are asking this question, are the Bixby Spartans the best team in Oklahoma regardless of class? No, they're not. They're not the best team regardless of class, but they're close. When you take a look at who they've played, yes, they went on the road to beat Jinx. They blew out Jinx. I get that. What would they do in a matchup against Union? What would they do in a matchup against Owasso? What would they do in a matchup against Broken Arrow? What would they do in a matchup against Carl Albert in a lower class, or even in their own class, Stillwater? And plus, their focus is solely on Booker T. Washington, by the way. So these hypothetical matchups, what would happen if Bixby played Carl Albert, or if Bixby played 4A's number 1 Tuttle? Bixby, yeah, they would probably be favored. They would probably win the football game, but who knows? Carl Albert, they're not afraid of anybody. So there's plenty of history between Carl Albert and Bixby. You go back to the last decade when Bixby was in Class 5A. Those two went at it several times with some big games and big opportunities on the line there. So is Bixby the best team in Oklahoma? It's hard to say. I'm going to say no. I think it's close. They're a very good football team. They might have the best offense in Oklahoma, but would they beat Owasso? Would they beat a Broken Arrow? I don't know. We'll never know the answer to that question unless they play head-to-head, and that's not going to happen. So as far as the hypothetical question, it is just that. It is just hypothetical. All right, before we get out of here, it's time to make some picks. We picked the top 10 games. Let's throw that top 10 graphic back up on the screen here. Taking one more look at the complete top 10 games. Again, you can check out the OKPreps top 10 games every single Monday on OKPreps.com. We're going to go from number 10 to number 1 here with our picks, and we start with Union and Mustang. Hard to go against Union at home, taking on a team from Mustang that's coming off of a loss. This is an improved Mustang team, but I think the Redskins bounced back after losing to Owasso last week, and I think that they kind of flexed their muscle in the process, getting a big win on Friday night. You have Carl Albert taking on Piedmont. Big game there in Class 5A. Carl Albert, I think that the Titans win. I think they extend their winning streak. I mentioned their quarterback, Ben Harris. I think that the Titans put up some numbers offensively. I think that they shut down Piedmont. They got to shut down this, flexbone offense, running attack from Piedmont, but I think that the Titans will have no problem there. You have Lincoln Christian taking on Seminole. I mentioned Lincoln Christian playing spoiler to Seminole, and Mike Snyder getting that big win to make him the all-time winningest head coach. I think that he'll get it, just not this week against Lincoln Christian. I think that the Bulldogs, when at full strength, are one of the best teams in Class 3A, and they'll show why on Friday night. You have Clinton taking on Weatherford. We're going with Clinton to get a big bounce-back win. We've talked a lot about how these teams cannot afford to lose a second straight district game. Clinton definitely going to be in desperation mode to get a victory. We like them on Friday night. You have Bixby taking on Booker T. Washington. We like the Spartans. It's hard to pick against Bixby at this point when you look at what they've done so far this season. We think that we don't think that it's going to be a blowout. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think Booker T is a very good football team. They have terrific athletes on that side of the ball as well. So I think that it's going to be a great football game. But in the end, I think the Spartans, that they are the top-ranked team for a reason. El Reno taking on Noble. We like Dorian Plumley. We've liked him since last year, and we're riding with him and El Reno to get a big district win there. You have Broken Arrow taking on Norman in a big battle featuring the Tigers. Norman trying to prove that they belong. I think that this, like I mentioned earlier, I think that this game will be close, but I like Broken Arrow to get the job done. You have PAWHUSKA taking on Tonkawa in a big battle in Class A. I like PAWHUSKA even before last week's loss with Tonkawa losing to Pawnee. I liked PAWHUSKA in this matchup. I love their quarterback, Bryce Drummond. That dude is, he's putting up video game numbers week in and week out. And if you followed me, whether it's on OKPreps or back in my time during the at the radio station covering high school sports, you know that I love dudes who put up video game numbers. Bryce Drummond, the latest to do that, and I like PAWHUSKA to get a big win over Tonkawa. Our number 2 game you have taking place on Thursday night, Edison hosting Bishop Kelly. Bishop Kelly, they're just missing too many of their guys. The injury bug has definitely bit Kelly very hard early on this season. You hope that they're able to bounce back and make a run at things and show what they're capable of when they're at full strength. But right now, they're not at full strength, and we got to go with the Edison Eagles there. And then our top game, number 1 game of the week, Heritage Hall taking on John Marshall. And it is so difficult to pick any team other than Heritage Hall when you have a matchup featuring the Chargers. But I think this game is going to be entertaining. I think it's going to be close, like I mentioned at the start. I think that we could be in for a shootout as both offenses have been able to light up the scoreboard. And honestly, John Marshall offensively, at this point, they might look a little better than Heritage Hall. But like I mentioned, it's so difficult to pick against Heritage Hall. We're going with the Chargers to get a win, but expect it to be close. Expect some points. Expect some plays from some absolute playmakers. It should be a great one there in Oklahoma City. Before we let you go, before we get out of here, we want to make sure to remind you we'll be at several different big-time matchups on Thursday and Friday night, so you'll be able to check out the highlights. We'll be at this Bishop Kelly-Edison matchup on Thursday, so you'll be able to check out the highlights from that matchup. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the OKPreps YouTube channel, and you'll get those highlights before anybody else, before they get published to the website on OKPreps.com. On Friday night, we'll also be at Booker T. Washington for that big matchup against the Bixby Spartans. So you'll be able to check out highlights from that matchup as well. And of course, you can check out OKPreps.com for the Week 5 scoreboard to check out the complete schedule in every single class, as well as the final scores once they come in on Thursday and Friday night. You can check out the Week 5 scoreboard on OKPreps.com. You can follow us on Twitter. You can like us on Facebook. Coming up this weekend, we'll have the new top 10 rankings in each class. We'll have 5 new candidates for OKPreps Player of the Week. By the way, congratulations to Bixby quarterback Mason Williams, who was this week's staff pick for Player of the Week. And congratulations to Lincoln Christian's Chase Rickey, who was the fans' choice win after getting 67% of the vote. He ran away with the fans' choice victory for Player of the Week. Congratulations to those 2 quarterbacks for winning that this week. And then finally, coming up, since Week 5 will be going into the books after Friday night, we will have our mid-season report. So be sure to stay tuned for that on OKPreps.com. My thanks to all the coaches who joined us earlier in the program. My thanks for you for tuning in, whether you're watching us or whether you're listening to us. We appreciate you joining us here. One final time, I'm your host, Michael Knight, and this has been Week 5's edition of the OKPreps Kickoff Show.